Welcome back, episode 71 of the Ground Up podcast.
If your mind is digitally downloaded onto a hard drive and someone could buy it, what do you think your mind will be worth?
At least £250,000.
If you're owning a £500,000 home or more, you are now susceptible to this new type of property tax. Sorry, boys, I'm not going to have any issues with that sort of stuff. Down there, by default, you're going to have those issues across the board.
Rachel Reeves grew up in Lewisham. The average house price in Lewisham is 500k. She could probably only move house every 5 years on her income in the location that she lives, including getting her hair done, because she has got a nice hairdo.
This podcast has really gone to some places.
Dorian's going to hand in his notice.
For most of human history, money was just the exchange of goods and trade between individuals, supply and demand.
You've just shown that everything gets phased out eventually and it moves on to a different currency. What's after Bitcoin?
Yeah, nothing comes after Bitcoin. Bitcoin is everything.
Ground up sound. Ooh, yeah. Real estate deals. We lay them down, let's get those deals. Deals making money, baby.
Welcome back, episode 71 of the Ground Up podcast. And today we're going to be talking about Rachel Reeves' proposal, somewhat ninja proposal that's been leaked. It's not official policy, it's not official rhetoric, but it is something the Chancellor has challenged her team, shall we say, to come up with new ways of raising money. And we're obviously going to be talking about the annual property tax that's being proposed and the change to CGT thresholds on property sales and the change from SDLT to this new sort of tax policy. So that's going to probably take up a fair whack of this episode and the impacts there on the housing sector, our thoughts on that sort of stuff, and then a proposed solution with a short history of money and how Bitcoin is the out relative to all of this crazy stuff coming out from the government, clearly going bankrupt. So we're going to talk about that and maybe a little bit about climate change as well, because it sort of ties into the whole costs imposed on our economy with bad policy and quasi-science. So that's going to be the talk. I think it'll be quite an interesting one because we're going to dive a little bit deeper on some of these things that we've high-leveled over recent episodes. And if you don't know who we are 4 property developers from the UK. And we operate property development businesses and other types of service businesses. So thank you for tuning in. We've got Stuart Wyeth, Jack Jiggins. We do sometimes have Dorian Payne, but he's an elusive character and he can't make it today. He's out at a charity gig. And myself, Ryan Beaumont. So make sure you subscribe. Big love. Thank you very much for tuning in to us and spending your time with us. We just a bit of housekeeping. We are going to be doing a live in-person event on the 9th of January. And there may or may not be a link to get tickets in the description of this podcast. We're still getting the marketing material together and other stuff, but it's just to let you know that if you want to come to a networking gig like no other, where we're going to try and offer as much value as possible, no upsells, no crazy, silly stuff. It's just about operating people who are active, doing real shit in the business and property space, getting together, hive-minding for a day, having a bit of fun, getting to know each other. That's the whole plan. So keep a lookout for that. It will come soon. How are we getting on, fellas? Jack, how's your week, mate?
All good. Been on big capital raising push. We're trying to raise sort of anywhere between 10 and 20 million across the businesses, which is fun. We're trying to basically consolidate. We've been now raising capital individually per deal. And we've got an individual raising our social housing portfolio. So we're trying to pull that all into one pot. So having some interesting conversations of late. We got a Dubai fund looking at us. We've got an Asian fund looking at us. What I have learned, and this might be relevant for our listeners, is one of the reasons that we kind of have to go far afield and maybe look at international funding is because a lot of family offices that may be based or looking to lend into developers like us just use that money anyway, but then they put a capital cost on it to manage that money and have overheads and have an office and have a financial director. So we're trying to get to the closest to the source as possible so that it's as cost effective as possible. And obviously easier that we've only got to deal with one party. And it's kind of like, a double-edged sword. You've got to make sure that they're not going to act like a PE fund and try and do a hostile takeover and strip your assets. So that there's it's going to take a while to find the right partner, but we've had some really good meetings recently. I know Dorian's very close to closing his capital raise with his firm. His a very specialist social housing, whereas ours is going to be a little bit more led around basically like group investments. So they come in, we have a pot that we can call on, we can act quicker on sites. So we're kind of we do need to recapitalize our social housing portfolio, but kind of using it as an opportunity to foster a relationship that's going to sail us into the next decade. But yeah, I've been having meetings, getting back into the swing of things with the office, and we had a couple of new starters and the interns doing their last week this week. We also had someone leave, so we did a drinks do this week. We play a really fun game actually, which I think you guys would enjoy.
Go on.
In our company, we normally do a pub quiz, and what we do is every person has their own set of questions. So you come with your own set of questions, and then you ask your set of questions. So you take it in turns. So you sit out for your questions, obviously. So you eventually all get the same amount of questions, and it's fun because you get to see everyone's personality and what questions they ask, as in part of the pub quiz. But we didn't play that this week. We played a new game, which was good fun. It's called Empire. Have any of you heard it?
No.
So you basically, if you're in a group, quite a large group is how it works best. And you basically all put secretly a random name into a hat. It could be anyone. It could be Keir Starmer. It could be Bugs Bunny. It could be Brian Beaumont. It could be anyone you want. Once you put that name in, someone then reads out all of the names once. Okay. And then the aim of the game is you've got to guess who put the name in. So it gets quite smart because you put in strategic names that don't sort of bring the action to you. And basically you go around and you can only ask a person if they put that name in if you've been asked that yourself. So someone starts off, and then if you go, right, Stuart, did you put in Bugs Bunny? And then you go, no. You can then ask someone, and it's you're in control. And basically the way that the empire works is if you guess someone's name right, they become part of your empire and they can't guess anymore. And you're then two people, and you work together. And it gets really fun because you can steal someone else's empire by taking the ringleader of their empire by guessing their name. So then you get their whole empire.
Yeah.
And when you get to a point where, let's just assume you've got 12 in your empire and there's only 2 people left, you then become really high risk because people target you to take your empire and would rather go for you over the other person. So it gets quite fun, and it's part memory, part strategy, you can joke around on it as well. So anyway, we played that and it's good fun.
Yeah, cool.
Look at you go, mate. I like that.
Yeah,
Pub
mate.
quiz is a good idea for team building and stuff. Nice.
Yeah,
mate.
honestly, our team love it. One of our employees is a super quiet guy. I think Stu's met him. He's a surveyor, and apparently when he was moving into his new house, his landlord was like vetting him and said, "So what do you do in your spare time?" And apparently his response was pub quizzes with people at work, and I thought that was so cute.
Bless him.
Good,
Yeah, I've met him.
I was gonna say, speaking of team building, we're taking everyone out to the races today in York, which will be nice bit of team building. Get everyone pissed, have a bit of fun, gambling some money. Is it good? I've not been, so
yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously York's a beautiful city. I'm sure it's got a beautiful race course. Some of the guys have been before. We're going to give everyone a little bit of pocket money so they can all do betting and stuff like that, and then see how pissed we can get everyone. So that'll be a fun day. And we try and do always try and do a Christmas party thing and a bit of like a night out. We've done that the last 2 years. But we haven't done a summer thing really. We've done like a go-karting thing once, sort of ad hocly, but we're going to try and do a religious sort of summer and the winter thing. To just keep that staff rapport, team building. For anyone listening who has a staff base or doesn't have a staff base, obviously you really, really get to know people way deeper in those kind of recreational settings than you do in the work setting. Because obviously you're in with work, you don't want to tangent too much on conversations and shit like that. Get people pissed. You really get to know the people who work with you or for you. And I think it's quite a fun thing to do. Stu?
Does peel back the layers. Yeah, we like that. We had a 8 o'clock till 9:30 meeting yesterday at the office to do our first health and safety committee, the official documented one, which was good fun actually, because the guys turned up. You know, some of them are old school, and it's like they've been doing it 20 years and they know their game, and they're not at risk really. They know their job inside out. But one of the first stories I started with was, you know, every morning I blow dry my hair, right, and I get in the shower, I get out of the shower, I take the long extension cable, I run the hairdryer right around the other side into the bathroom, and then for 10 years I've done exactly the same. And I look down, and I'm standing on water everywhere. That's, you know, I've got a thing that I put down, but this particular morning it was in the wash, and I'm standing there with this hairdryer thinking, like, the amount of trust I've got in this hairdryer, it's not been pat tested. It's been thrown around. It's been, you know, it's been tangled up on the cable, and I'm standing in this puddle of water. It's just, I said to the guys that not just because I've done it today doesn't mean it couldn't happen tomorrow. And it was a really good meeting actually. And the boys, they all started with fucking hell, health and safety, and after a good hour and a half and a few bacon sandwiches, and sort of we've done the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and sort of sat down with the basics of food, water, welfare, right the way through to total ownership of these sites. You know, you are the site manager. You're above the customer. That from that step up, you are looking after these sites with lofts or development sites. So it's really good actually. I've really enjoyed it, and I think they come away pretty pumped to step up the game. But yeah, no, this week, I mean, I've literally just had the homeowner pack come through for my house, so I'm certainly stressing about. We've got like 3 holidays in September. We should have been completed in August, and we've had some delays and some issues in the chain, and
3 holidays.
Get all that sorted out. 3 holidays in September. Yeah, well, we got well, the golf trip with Dolly.
I'm moving house.
I'm moving house. We've got to try and fit it in within 3 days, and then obviously Megan's going in September as well. So it's just carnage, and the realism of her leaving now is really kicking in the staff. So yeah, it's good. It's stressful. It's fun. It is what it is.
1 day at a time, mate. 1 day at a time, innit?
Working on Twickenham, trying to refinance Farnborough, get out of that one as quick as we can. Just trying to get some last little bits done so we can get the tent in on the front. The 2 HMOs are flying. We had a big leak on one of them, which I think you saw that on stories as well. That's sort of drying out now, but where we should be renting 6 units, we decided to leave it another 3 weeks and just let it totally dry out. What I don't want to do is throw carpets down, to get too early, get too keen, and then 6 months later have any mold or black spot, any issues at all. So just let it dry, finish the basement, which is a bit of a pain, but I want to get that one off our desk. There's another few HMOs that have landed. We looked at a big site in Farnham 2 days on Wednesday, Friday. Really good deal. There's some really good deals. Some of the deals we've been putting bids out are starting to come around again now. So that's a real change in the market. We have held our own and gone, we're not paying that. It's not worth that. And people have gone, yeah, we'll buy it. And then 3 or 4 months have passed, and now they're coming back saying, actually, it didn't quite go through. This particular deal, she wanted 2.5 million for it. She'd accept 1.5 million. It's a perfect location. It's such a nice building and office. It's just 9,000 square foot of really good office space. It could be carved up into small commercial units in a great location that would rent really quickly. Some of the units around here, like the Regis's, are like 40, 50 pound a foot, and this thing stacks up at like 30 pound a foot easy. So I just don't know if I want to change the strategy. And there's an easy £1 million to be made without no planning in 6 months, and yet I'm still thinking, have I got the energy and the time to do it? Is it part of the strategy? But I don't know, man. Just exhausted. Shiny penny. Just stick to what we know. But then again, the commercials. I mean, I understand why people don't do commercial conversions, because you are literally rebuilding the building from the inside out. Every brick is being repointed. Every restructure, every structural issue. No engineer wants to sign their name to anything. They want you to go over and above so they can give you the documents you need, which means it's like 10 times harder than doing new build. So it's one of those realisms this week or the last few weeks. It's like, they're great and they look beautiful and they're in good locations, but the amount of energy and time you put in and all the risk you take up front, there is no other option but to hold them, in my opinion, because by the time you get to the end of it, you need to hold it, because you see the realization of true wealth creation over 5-10 years when you come to refinance it. We're saying offline
70s, 80s and 90s office buildings are a lot more straightforward as a fit out. Like some of our conversions, we've got obviously Grade 2 listed in Marlow, we've got the old Maltings, which obviously needs a bit of TLC, but the more modern office buildings literally is a fit out. Like it's track, board, done.
They're the ones that I think they're the ones that have been being paid a premium for, but I think they're the ones that are starting to come round again now, going, actually, they're not actually going through with them. So I am hopeful that in the next 3 or 4 months, we're going to get a few decent deals by holding out and just not putting our price up, because like we all know, you make your money.
Tell you what, I'm going to go on my holidays and I'm going to go away for a month. They'll all be waiting for me.
Well, we had a bit of a mutiny this week. Site manager just left. Who's looking after all the HMOs. And full transparency, I speak about this stuff on the vlog anyway, but we've just had underperformance from site managers on the HMOs. Bigger sites are easier, which is always a sort of non-intuitive thing to the layman who's not dealing with construction. But when you got a site manager sat on a big site and you can afford the prelims, it's fucking managed well, and you're getting the reporting, you're getting the data feedback. It's very tactile. When you're dealing with smaller projects and doing them at scale, you have the project individually can't afford the prelim, so you have to dilute that prelim and give a site manager multiple projects, up to say 10 projects at a time. And what that means is you need really good reporting, and you need good site managers who have a keen eye for detail. And we've just had real underperformance there for a while. Always finish sites. We never charge the client more. We always absorb the hit. We lose money on some, make money on others, but there's just a delay on the back end, and obviously pissing off a few clients, which is not what we want to do. Just on those delays, some things lagging a month or two. One of our own sites lagged about 6 months, because our sites become the victim in those scenarios. We just have to reallocate labor, and we'll just take the hit on any borrowing costs or interest rising costs. So we're just trying to figure out how we can really stabilize that. We do have there's a lot of progress being made, but with construction, just nothing happens quick. If a site starts slipping and then you try and compensate from another site, both sites start slipping, and they can all just slip out of sequence and time. And that's just what we've felt over the last year and a half, really. And we're getting out the back end of it now. But then to have a site manager just leave is like, oh shit. No warning. He just left. So we now might have a really good solution. We might restructure how we're doing the management and change it from sort of a top-down management to a kind of vertical management instead. Go on, you want to show and tell, Stu, don't you? Go on, show and tell us.
I just realised this is for one of my holidays that my wife seems to have bought me. It's where we go to Disneyland in a few weeks. I'm just here to pay for everything. Carry on, mate. I was listening. I just saw the bag.
And the ADHD kicks in.
Look at my top.
Attention span. Go on. Sorry, mate. I was listening.
Yeah, no, it's just to say that the difficulties of managing of construction, big sites, small sites, there is a difficult place to be. High regulation, a lot of moving parts, difficult market, shortage of labor. It's hard, and that's for investors out there and anyone listening who's not so privy to the construction process. Have some sympathy, because it is not easy. It's the biggest. Go on.
I've got a friend that runs a plant and tool hire company. Actually, my dad's old one that my dad exited and sold out to his dad. So technically, my dad's business partner's son. And I've also got a friend that runs a toilet hire company. And when you speak to them, you really appreciate the staff that we hire, because their biggest problem is someone turning up and doing a job. And we don't have, if we have that problem in our business, we have a stern word. They need to perform. If they don't, they go. But it's very rare that we have that conversation. In our industry, I feel like we're quite lucky, because it is more appreciated. It is a better work. And I'm always really thankful that the team that I run are so engaged, invested in the bigger picture, keen to learn. Whereas all of their problems are staffing problems, and it's because it's shit work. Who wants to be sucking a toilet out 300 times a day? No one.
Yeah.
And every business has benefits and negatives, and that's one that I see with ours. And even though site management role isn't the most glorious, typically you do get people that are a stepping stone from site management to project management. So it is quite a popular role.
Yeah, it is, mate. And you're absolutely right. That is one of the bigger insights, is just that lads can just not show up, or misses can have an issue, or they might break their leg drunk on a night out or whatever, and they're not showing up to work. That pisses your sequence of works. These are just the difficulties of construction. It doesn't help that you have top-down bureaucracy adding more regulation, more employers bullshit, IR35, CIS, and then you're trying to get lads to claim gross status, and they're like, nope, see you later, I'll go work for someone else. It's just there's no sympathy top-down from the regulators, and it's creating a mutiny. And then they get swept up by government contracts. And you can just suddenly lose a load of lads because, there's a new government building getting knocked up or a new railway thing or whatever, and then you need a load of dry liners for an office fit out, and then you lose your dry liners because they'll pay 300 a day with our taxpayer money compared to what we can afford to pay in the private market. It's just such a difficult industry, but it works in the end. We always make sure you finish the project, is my view. As long as the project gets finished and you can recapitalize it, then you're always quids in long term. So anyway, yeah, that's bit of the week. But more importantly than my small issues, much bigger issue potentially coming from the lovely Rachel Reeves, who plans to tax high value homes to plug fiscal hole, to cover this £40 billion black hole that I'm sure will be blamed on the Tories or on whoever else isn't Labour. So there's quite a lot to divulge here. So we're going to do. It's going to get a little bit detailed, guys, because we're going to want to try and go into some examples. But this should be good for anyone who's not looked into this stuff yet. So if you're owning a £500,000 home, then or more, you are now susceptible to this new type of property tax. Potentially susceptible. This is what they're looking at, but it's getting spoken about a lot. So will they try and push it through in the budget? They've got to do something, and this is an easy tax take. So let's just see what the impacts are. And if you own a £500,000 home, the rhetoric is that doesn't make you rich, because by default, if you live in the south, I'm sure you guys in your homes and your mates' homes are probably by default around those values or way more, just because of the postcode. It doesn't make them rich. Obviously, they've got equity, but it doesn't mean they've got the cash to be subsidizing like high annual taxes. Let's look at some of the details here. So independent readers are divided over proposals being considered by Chancellor Rachel Reeves for a new tax on homes worth more than £500,000, with many questioning whether the threshold would unfairly affect ordinary homeowners rather than the truly wealthy. Several argued that in high-priced areas, £500,000 is not a marker of wealth, with smaller homes often costing more than that. In London and parts of the South East, owning a £500,000 home does not make you rich, noted one reader, while others suggested a higher threshold or regional variations to avoid penalising middle-class families would be better. And that's a very good point, because up here, sorry boys, I'm not going to have any issues with that sort of stuff. Down there, by default, you're going to have those issues across the board, right? Because that's just the difference in capital values. So let's go a little bit more into detail here with what some of the proposals are. So the whole idea is to fill this £40 billion hole. Under the proposals being considered, the Chancellor is reportedly looking to end the exemption from capital gains tax when owners of higher value properties choose to sell. So higher taxpayers could therefore potentially be in line for a levy of 24% on any profit made when selling a property, regardless of use. Meanwhile, basic rate taxpayers could be forced to pay 18% of any gains on their property under the proposal. The tax would be applicable to all properties above a stated threshold, although where this threshold would be set is still a topic of fierce debate amongst officials. According to analysis by The Times, a threshold of 1.5 million would hit around 120,000 homeowners who are higher rate taxpayers with capital gains tax bills of £200,000. Now, I don't think there's any more there, but there is still quite a lot more personal detail, just like the annual cost that they're talking about, this annual tax, I believe, is over 500,000 is 0.5%, and then over, I think, 1.5 million is 0.8% annually. And obviously these costs start to really stack up. And then there's the congestion of people then not wanting to sell homes to then pay the CGT tax on top of this potential annual tax, which affects downsizers. It stagnates the market. It slows transactions. And ultimately, they will collect less tax in the long term. In the short term, they might be able to butcher a load of people. But this is just crazy. Like this is a crazy proposal. It's desperate, and it's again raising taxes, which Labour promised they wouldn't do. And it's not on wealthy people. This is on your average Joe down south. So, Jack, I think you've got data here, haven't you, on what these costs actually look like to people?
Yeah, I've got a worked example of the exit tax. So the annual tax that they're referring to, the US actually already does this. They don't have a stamp duty and land tax, and they just charge an annual tax for properties. But so I'm now specifically talking about the proportional property sales tax, which is the cost which is currently being discussed to move from a buyer onto a seller. And in principle, you could think to yourself, surely that's good for you as developers, but then you also might incur tax at the tail end once you've then got 20 units, whereas when you're buying, it's just 1 unit. So essentially, I actually did a work example. So, and I referenced it to be buying a property as a commercial outfit. So at the moment, if you bought a property for £600,000 today, the buyer pays the stamp duty and land tax. And I'm sure most of our listeners would know that. And for that purchase, it's 0% for the first £250,000. And then it's 5% for a limited company purchase from £250,001 all the way up to the sales value of it, so 600k. So in that worked example, that's £17,500 stamp duty and land tax. If you use this worked example, and they've yet to actually share their numbers on this. Sorry, actually, I'll rephrase that. That would be so 17,500 for a person, and for a limited company, it's 0 for 250 up to 250, 5% thereafter, and then a surcharge, which is 3% on top for a limited company purchase. So for a limited company on a 600k purchase, it's £35,500. So for a person, 17.5, and for a limited company purchase, 35,500. What they're proposing is, rather than the buyer be paying the stamp duty, the seller be paying the stamp duty. So using that worked example, the stamp duty for the buyer would be abolished. Instead, this sales tax is levied on the seller on any property over the value of 500k. The buyers would pay £0, and the sellers' high value properties would be the tax burden. So for a working example, sale price of £600,000, a seller may pay up to 2.5% of the 600k. The buyer pays 0. So then the seller is basically paying 15k to sell the property. And that's pretty much it. So what we've got to look at here is the standard transaction, because most transactions are resi homeowners to resi homeowners. So rather than charging £17,500 for a buyer, they're charging £15,000 to the seller. And that's the principle of the topic. I mean, there's good and bad in this, right? So, I mean, what I find crazy, to talk specifically about this sales tax, is I don't get why their trial and error or trying something new is so shifted to now being the opposite way. So if you own a home, rather than being able to sell it and not pay pay the stamp duty on a new home, you're then paying on your existing home. Obviously, that does support property climbing, so buying something bigger. I think that's quite a good element to this. So you're more encouraged to, because I think we've had almost a record year of downsizers this year. Because of cost of living and various other things. So I do like that element. But what I don't get about any government changes is, why does it have to be so drastic? Why don't they try sharing the stamp duty? So when a transaction happens, stamp duty's worked out, seller pays half, buyer pays half, and see how we get on. And then if it works really well, then move it. But it's always like, if you shift something this much, every transaction above 500, as Ryan said, is going to get less busy and less transactional and reduce activity, and it's going to absolutely boost the transactions below 500k, which moves anyway. Like that's quite an active space in the market anyhow. So yeah, I don't know what I really make of it.
You've raised a couple of things that they're making me ask some questions which might be interesting. Let's say, I mean, ultimately, whether it's on the seller or the buyer, the cost of the taxation is always going to be somewhat baked into the sales price anyway. So the absolute cost will be burdened both sides sort of equally. But does it now mean that you don't need as much equity to buy a house, because you don't have to, because obviously you can't leverage stamp duty, so you don't need to pay the stamp? What do you think of that? I'm just spitballing. you think that's
Yeah, so I
slightly
completely
better?
agree with you with values being baked in, but I would actually say that it's less prevalent in the consumer market. You know, if we're looking to buy a building, we go, well, this is what I'm going to end up with. This is what I need to deduct back. With consumer, it's where do they want to live? What schools are they nearby? Is it their dream home? It's less relevant around a commercial angle. So this end of the market will, it's just a fact of moving, but it discourages them in activity. If you think about this very macro, the biggest wealth in the UK is held in baby boomers. So the post-war, I don't know what era it is, 70 down all the way to probably 50-year-old people. They carry most of the wealth, and to hand over that wealth, typically, bank of mum and dad or bank of gran and grandpa, depending on how active you were in your early ages of producing a family, were the second biggest bank 2 years ago in the UK. So that wealth is getting passed down to generations. This is quite an efficient way of doing the same thing, because we as young youths climbing the ladder pay less tax to exit the properties because we're climbing the ladder. They're paying more tax because they're exiting the ladder. They're going down the ladder. But what you'll get is people that just go, well, I'm sat in a £2 million house. It's going to cost me 80k to sell. I'll just spend that on the house, and I'll get a cleaner, and I'll get a gardener, and then they'll stay there. So the concern is activity.
They're moving the tax point, right? So they're moving the tax point before people die, effectively. So they're bringing it forward 15 years on the exit side. I think it's absolute criminal. And
I mean, they tried to bring it forward even quicker with spreading that dreaded virus, COVID.
Yeah. Yeah, fucking lethal bastards. And fucking what's it, the not giving the energy subsidies to pensioners and things like that. There's all kinds of like creepy conspiracies you go to.
Great tax reasoning that, yeah.
Yeah, it's fucking mental. But the another side of it, another little curveball one, is if there is this annual tax that the homeowner then has to pay, is that going to be factored into stress testing for the banks? And therefore, will that affect LTV? Will that affect how much income you then need to borrow the same amount? Because you still have to pay the interest, but now you're having to pay this annual tax as well. I think that could also affect the mortgage side and how they productize mortgages for any properties that are affected by these new thresholds.
Should structure it, shouldn't it? But then at the moment, council tax doesn't factor into that calculation.
True. I mean, but they're talking about potentially abolishing or potentially tying up council tax into this stuff, aren't they? So you wouldn't actually pay council tax, which would then mean the south ends up subsidising the north even more than it already does.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have any potholes down here, none.
Do you not?
No, not one.
Quite a few.
So it's brilliant. It's brilliant down here.
That there are these second and third order effects, though, aren't there? That this government just doesn't understand. And I agree, that drastic change. I mean, it's desperate times for them because they just can't fucking manage the economy. And when I say they, I don't mean Labour. I mean Labour included, but it's the government. The government just can't get out of its own way and understand that it needs to be smaller. It needs to not be spending as much money. And it needs to inspire growth in the economy to grow our way out of the situation. And everything they're doing is anti that they're growing the public sector exponentially, growing the burden on taxpayers to fund it all. And they're raising taxes and making employment harder and disincentivizing business owners. People are fleeing the country. It's so fucking dumb. Yeah, bring back Boris, man. I mean, we just need an entire overhaul. I mean, Stu, what do you think on this stuff? Because you're about to buy a house.
Yeah, well, I'm buying it because I'm never going to move. I think that's the problem. I think that if this is a residential thing and not a business thing, if it's going to be every property, whether you're a limited company, some of these buy-to-lets that are making a few £100 a month, if they need to pay it and it's not the renter, then people are going to go more into rented. Sorry, I've got to take this call, boys. Really sorry. 2 seconds.
Should we role play what we think's going on? He's selling a loft, isn't he?
Yeah, he probably is. He's like,
do you want to be Stu or customer?
No, I'm not, mate. I've my kitchen designer's outside a HMO. He needs to get in, and I just need to ring the boy to let him know he's outside. Won't be 2 seconds.
He ain't got a fucking key, mate.
Stu, what sort of fucking do you call this?
Is it in the lockbox?
Yeah, I bet you're fucking recording one of those podcasts again. Get down here and open it up.
Do some work for your free holidays. He did make a point, though, that obviously if there is this increase in annual tax borne onto the owner, then they're just going to pass it on to the renter. The renter's going to end up funding that tax in a buy-to-let scenario, right? That's just always what happens, isn't it?
Yeah, does it? I don't know if it does. We don't charge service charge if we have a building that is, part of a block of flats or whatever. We pay for that. So I don't know, because the problem
you pay for it, but it's factored into the market value, right? As in the market, if the
Yeah,
whole
the
market gets
market,
hit with this thing.
the free market adjusts, doesn't it? So I suppose the reason we don't charge is because we've got a share of freehold, 3-bedroom flat, which means there's a service charge per year. I think it's like 400 quid. Maybe, no, it's probably more than that, actually. But the reason we can't charge it is because the person viewing our flat can rent a different flat that's not charging it, or a house that's not charging it. So to be competitive, but this is market wide, so actually it should then get reflected in the market. But there's shitloads of landlords leaving the market. All the landlords that own their assets in their personal name are absolutely fucked.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say what I was saying before I had to take that call really quickly. So if businesses have got if people who own the property have got to pay the tax, and it only applies to people who are homeowners, then people go more into rented, and the rental market will boom, making the supply demand increase. And if businesses have to pay it, the buy-to-let market's dead, which means the demand for rentals is going to be so unbalanced. It's really difficult to understand what they would apply it to. If it's to every business and everyone who owns a house, then rents are going to rocket, and it's going to actually do the complete opposite. Yeah, so no one will want to buy. Everyone will want to rent, and that'll increase. And that's the way that I put that story up on Instagram, and I had maybe about 30 people go, they want everyone to rent. They want all the big builders to own everything, and we'll own nothing. And that was all the answers. I was like, wow, the consensus is that's what they're trying to do, is that they want no one to own anything.
Well, you look at BlackRock, Blackstone, Granger Group, the big money, the global money, these universal hedge funds, which should just be illegal by nature. They're buying everything. They have the cheapest cost of capital, and they want you to be renters and own the asset-backed scarce asset. That's what they do. And I just think you can see this top down as the globalists fed in with all of these big capital allocators who are changing policy across the board. And this is an example of that, because it benefits them and not the average Joe. And it's happened in America for ages.
The problem you have with so we're a mature market, and it's actually more fractured than a new market, because in the US you can build a town and BlackRock can fund it, and you can then own 50% social housing, 50% rental, as single family homes. But the problem with the UK is it's so fragmented. You try and get BlackRock to come into a market town and take over that, they can't, because it's all bitty and there's loads of different units here and there, and there's for them to make a dent in our market is really difficult. So that's not. And we've also got limitations like Greenbelt, Area of Outstanding Natural Beauties. You've got a lot of our land won't ever be developed, so you can't go swaths of land and go, right, let's build 2,000 homes there, just because it won't get through. So they'll struggle to push into the bigger players in our country, because it is a mature market that is extremely
not
fragmented.
If they bankrupt us all. If they keep trying to bankrupt us.
Yeah, that would work.
They could do.
If I buy this property in a few weeks and I pay 55 grand's worth of stamp duty, and then they bring this in April, or in April next year. So when will they backdate it, and will they backdate it? Because if you've got to pay all the stamp duty up front, then change the goalposts, and then start paying a 0.5% levy year on year on top of the tax you just paid, I think it's just
your material
barbaric.
change won't be that big, though, will it? Because you're selling at the top of the bracket in the house that you're in and buying in the bottom of the next bracket, right? So your values aren't too dissimilar.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, so you're selling this
you're
house,
still paying the moving costs. You won't be paying if they change the goalpost where you don't pay stamp duty when you buy. Then effectively, I'm paying money twice. I'm paying now to move, and then I'll be paying to sell. So you get hit on both sides, literally 1 year. And if we decide to sell a year later,
I get what you're saying. If you sell if you buy now and move in a year, you get double taxed.
You're being taxed in
I mean,
effectively on both ends of the transaction.
Yeah.
But or you buy and then you just pay the extra 3-4 grand or 2,700 quid a year. It would be on top of the council tax every year you own the property, which would be a right pain. Which actually, it's just a right pain. It's just a way of moving that tax point from people who have got money, like you said, the baby boomers, moving it forward. And you know they paid not a lot of stamp duty when they bought their houses, but people move every 3 or 4 years, and that's what helps the market stimulate. If that stops and people just buy to stay forever, then it's such a shame, because all house prices are inflated because of the money they print and the decisions they make from the establishment, which is all fictitious money, and it has to be regionalised. You can't have all the wealth. The house prices in the south are a lot more expensive than the ones in the north. You know, you just can't have this imbalance. It would just be totally unfair. Like you said, the regional costs of running the country. It's sunny Surrey, isn't it? It's, it's like the Med down there.
It's whenever they do this though, like whenever they bring in like stuff. Hello.
Hello. Say hello.
Just the kitchen fitter.
Sorry.
You in?
Kitchen fitter, yeah. So he's doing me a favour. He's basically going there and designing the whole thing, because I can't be bothered to draw it out, and he knows what I like, so he's just going there to get in. Right, go there, Simon.
Bless. But it just shows though that the centralized. I just want to touch on this point because it is. We talk about the need of free market movement and the need of getting government out of trying to centrally plan every part of our lives, particularly the property sector that holds so much capital and has such a wide impact on people's lives. Cost of living, most expensive thing for each month is their rent or their mortgage. And when they're trying to centrally plan stuff, it never, ever, ever works. They have to abdicate to the free market. Let the free market do what it does. Because in this scenario, it's almost discriminatory to homeowners in the south, because by default, their cap values are higher, meaning they're going to pay a higher proportion of the tax. Then, in a slightly different context, look at the energy performance standards and the increase in requirements for people to refurb their house to XYZ EPC. Well, that's discriminatory in the other way around, because if you're in the north, there's not as much equity in the home to subsidize those additional fixed costs like perimeter insulation, solar panels and things like that, whereas in the south, as a portion of the equity value, it's much lower to do the same kind of work. So you can't centrally plan this stuff, and every time they try and do it, they're distorting the market, and they're distorting it in all these different ways, which is silly.
The one thing that a tax advisor was telling me, that one of the most complicated tax I suppose areas is SDLT, because there's tons of breaks that you can get. So if obviously the property's not fit for purpose or got severe structural issues, you can normally alleviate stamp duty. You can normally alleviate stamp duty if you're saving a chain. So if a chain's falling through and you step in and save the chain with a cape on and a Batman mask. Yeah, you can.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know you could do that. I mean,
this is not tax advice, and every case is different. But yeah, chain saving, typically you can negate stamp duty. Also, if you're relocating for any service like the military, you don't pay stamp duty, and you prove that you're relocating. So there's various different breaks, but they're going to have to rewrite all of that if it's then on the seller.
More bureaucracy, more pen pushing, more human capital wasted on bullshit exercises. It's just fucking crazy. I mean, I suppose we spoke about this for a little while. We wanted to get onto another topic that me and Stu will love. I know Jack will love this as well. Which is to go, well, what's the solution? Because how can you really protect your money? Because as you can see, obviously, I still think property is a great asset class, and you just have to navigate these things, understand them, and plan your business around them. I don't want to get out of property. I love property, and I'll always be an advocate for property in the UK, at least for now. But what is the real way to be in control and be sovereign of your own wealth? Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the way. So just wanted to do it like a brief history here. Because it does feed into what we're seeing more and more, which is the government's trying to take more and more from us. They are impacting our sovereignty, and in the UK, that's kind of a mad thing, because we're a proud people that like to own our own lives and our own freedom of movement. And I just feel like we're seeing this Orwellian global movement that is completely suppressing countries like ours, where we have zero political leadership or strength, and we're just getting butchered and bum raped left, right and centre from European laws, from the central banking changes, which is global, from the dollar changes, how that affects the pound. And it's just like, what can you do if you're an individual? And I've been speaking to a few mates about this who just asked me about Bitcoin, and I'm like, you just got to go and understand the history of money and see how you can get out of this kind of government entrapment. So a quick history here is money has always changed. It's not always been pounds, dollars, euros, or this fiat currency that we know. It's changed throughout history. Money used to be barter and direct trade, as it was from 10,000 BC to 3000 BC. So for 7,000 years, so for most of human history, money was just the exchange of goods and trade between individuals, supply and demand. If I had more wood because I was a good lumberjack, and you had more wheat because you were a good farmer, then we'd trade the difference. And we can both specialize in our different fields. And over time, that makes for more special trades, more surplus, introducing new layers of commodities to transact that value, like shells, livestock, metals, including gold. And that happened for another 3 or 2,500 years. And then that got more specialized. And then we had these metallic coins and silverware. And then we had paper banknotes introduced, which actually came in from the Chinese under what was he called? Emperor Tang, I think it was, who brought in this idea of paper banknotes to try and increase liquidity in the market. Great idea. And then we had the gold standard, which came in, and so the gold standard.
Can I quickly give you my theory on where I think money came from?
What money? What money?
Well,
Which one?
Notes.
Banknotes. Yeah, go on.
Just IOUs.
Where they used to trade commodities like gun bullets, gold, and if they didn't have it on them, they'll just go, "Pass me a bit of paper. I owe you 1 bit of gold. There you go, mate. There you go.
Exactly.
Bit of gold."
Yeah. Exactly, that, mate. Yeah. Whoever owned but bear in mind, it's that asset layer underneath. So paper money is this kind of fictitious layer on top that has a speculative and value imbued upon it through central actors who go, you will accept this as money, and they can only do that so long as there's not a debasement of the asset layer below it or within it. Depends what the commodity is. There's a really interesting story on Thai stones, which I know Stuart will know this because he's read the gold standard. The Bitcoin standard, and Thai stones on this island, save for semantics, but on this island they had these stones. You may have seen them. They're like these round stones with like circles in the middle of them, and these stones used to sit in the middle of the town, of the village, and everyone would get around, and when it's transacted and changes ownership, everyone would be there to listen to the exchange of ownership of that stone to someone else. The stone doesn't move. The stone stays in the center of the town, but it acts like a public forum, like a public ledger for everyone there to agree through consensus that stone is now owned by Mr. Miyagi instead of Mr. Tampa or whoever their name is. And that lasted for many years until the Europeans came in and found a better way to mine these types of stone, stronger ships so they could move these types of stone, and that debased the stone value till eventually it inflated away and the stones had no value anymore. And that happens to all of our monetary systems and those things that we call money, because money isn't pounds, euros and sterling. Money is just what we value our labor energy with. That's all that money is, because everything comes back to human labor. There's no such thing really as material values, just human labor values that's priced in the whole way through the economy. And the thing we price that labor value in is what we call money. And we now call that pounds and euros, but the value of the value of that commodity that we exchange has gone down 99.99% over the last 100 years. So it has no value. Like it's completely worthless, fictitious thing that in the short term represents your labor, but every year it gets debased, which is why we need a new thing, something that doesn't allow that to happen and stops central planners and governments from being able to continuously debase us and create this kind of flywheel effect where we're always chasing to make more money and getting less and less and less for it. Other than the fact that technology works in the reverse and makes things slightly cheaper. But wherever government gets involved, housing, food, energy, it makes them more expensive. iPhones and TVs have gotten cheaper because they're not involved in those sectors. But wherever they're involved, because they centrally plan and issue the money and subsidize it and create all these bullshit regulatory and tax hoops, they're making life more difficult. Bitcoin, which is the kind of roundabout point here, Bitcoin isn't out to that because it's truly scarce. There is only so many in supply and there'll never be any more. And it's an immutable, trustworthy decentralized ledger, Bitcoin is the out to this system. And I think just not enough people know that. They just think Bitcoin's still a scam. And I speak to people who are really smart, and they're like, yeah, but I mean, is it really? Like, I'd rather buy Tesla. And I'm like, yeah, Tesla's probably pretty good, but like, I think you're missing the point. The point is that Bitcoin is new money. Like, the world will be based on Bitcoin in the future, and you can buy your stake in a global economy now for a really cheap price and protect yourself against the government introducing new tax laws on property transactions and all this other shit in between. So that was the main sort of point, just sort of run through the history of like what money is, in case people didn't actually know that money isn't pounds, sterlings, and euros. It's the commodity we transact our labor hours with, and the more corrupted that medium of exchange is, the worse our lives are, and that's essentially all we keep seeing. And the government obviously doesn't understand that. It's not in their incentives to get rid of the pound, and they don't want Bitcoin to come in because it takes away their power. So they're constantly trying to raise taxes on us.
I say bring back livestock trading. Imagine how good that would be.
Give you a
Shoes
sheep.
back. Imagine how big it is. You're like, is that your car? Yeah, okay. Well, I'll give you 3 goats and 4 guinea pigs.
What value has a guinea pig really got, though? A guinea pig do for me. Maybe mow my lawn really slowly.
While you were chatting through that, I was listening, but I got a bit more substance on the old exit property tax.
Go on then.
Did you know that the average disposable income for a UK resident, so this is disposable, so this is what you could spend on moving house, is £36,000 per year. And I actually looked up, Rachel Reeves grew up in Lewisham, and the average house price in Lewisham is 500k. She's apparently on 80k. So she could probably only move house every 5 years on her income in the location that she lives, maybe less. She's got a 35k, including holidays, getting her hair done because she has got a nice hairdo, and various other things. It sort of limits and restricts the main, I'm joking, the main area of the market.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to goats and Bitcoin.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you and guinea pigs. Don't forget guinea pigs. Sorry, there was a last point there as well. It was just to show for all these commodities that we've used as a medium of exchange throughout history, it's been, if you just look at the years in which these different commodities were used, 7,000 years we used barter, 2,500 years we used commodities, shells, livestock, localized commodities that were found within kind of decentralized communities. Metallic coins were 1,000 years, paper money 1,000 years. The gold standard is only 100 or so years. Fiat money's been around for about 40 years, undisturbed by other commodity-backed systems like gold. And then about 16 years, we've now had digital cryptocurrency and Bitcoin. So when you look at the history of civilization, the reason that we got to where we were is because gold backed the world. Gold got us to where we were. Nothing else. It was gold that constantly kept repricing these other exchanges or mediums of exchange that the emperors, kings, queens, and governments kept trying to come up with, inevitably debased, because if they print more money, they can exercise more powers in their short political terms or short reigns of power to, expedite or exploit their people and wage war and things like that. But gold kept rebasing them because people would flight back to gold. And it's kind of understanding it like that. But now you have a better version of gold, which is Bitcoin, a significantly better version of gold. And I just want people to understand that, because I just don't think people get that Bitcoin isn't this like elusive like thing in the internet that has no value. It is replacing and repricing the entire world, because it's now performing the thing that gold did for 2,000 years. Gold's just no longer capable of doing that because it's really expensive to be the custodian of. It's hard to transact. It's not divisible as easy. Bitcoin is. It does all those things and it has better attributes on top. So everyone, you need to start buying Bitcoin, and that's not financial advice.
I think that's part of the problem. Like the cure is the curse, right? That's why people struggle with Bitcoin, because it's not tangible. But its best thing about it is it's not tangible.
Yeah, it's equality, and but gold isn't as well, and stocks aren't.
A question for you, Rye, which when Stu comes back in, he might be able to answer as well. So you've just shown that everything gets phased out eventually, and it moves on to a different currency. What's after Bitcoin?
There is no after Bitcoin, Jack.
Oh, I knew you were going to say that.
I knew you knew I was going to say that. It's a good question, Joe. I've actually had this debate with a few people that if we move into a world where, again, just going back to like what money really is pricing that labor extraction, right? Everything comes down to labor. Materials aren't actually the true cost. The true cost is really borne by labor. Human time and energy is the finite resource that makes up our economy. And I know that a business at, say, layer 4 has material costs, but those material costs fundamentally come from some mining rig or some distributed factory or whatever that also have a labor cost. So everything reduces back to labor cost. And if that is, if in a world of AI and robotics, we then have AI and robots are doing everything for us, and that labor extraction value basically trends towards zero, then what is an economy and what is the utility in a medium of exchange? I think it may be. Maybe Bitcoin plays this function, maybe some other kind of distributed ledger of power or political equity or social equity becomes the new medium of exchange, kind of like followers are now. Like followers and attention are the new kind of commodity. We're almost seeing this emergence of a new type of medium of exchange, which is if you have attention, you now can leverage that attention to make money. But if the money layer disappears, maybe you can leverage attention to exchange and extract experiences or political will or changes in policy or regulation and how people live their lives. Maybe that's where the world goes to if the concept of an economy divulges. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's really. I mean, we're predicting the future, right? So it's really almost near impossible.
We don't know.
Predict. I think that what I'm starting to see from that like digital space is I do think we are starting to regress into more old school traits and be more interested in experiences and seeing things rather than having a commodity backed. I think we're becoming less materialistic. I think that we've gone massively materialistic route and then like very digitally unhealthily, and I think it's kind of going the opposite direction. I think we're going to cherish slightly different things to what we did over the last decade or two.
I think you can see that with like interior design of modernity and things getting simplified, right, compared to like the 70s, 80s, 90s where there's a fajazzle everywhere. Do you know what I mean?
Fajazzle. I'm pretty sure
fajazzle on my sofa. You know what I mean?
Stuart, you missed out. We talked about Bitcoin. We talked about loft conversions. We also talked about Lego.
Jack asked me a question, which I'll throw to you as well. What comes after Bitcoin?
Yeah, nothing comes after Bitcoin. Bitcoin is everything. A protocol. What comes after the internet, Jack? Nothing comes after the internet. You don't go and build a better internet. You build on the internet.
I think there are things that come up, that can relate after Bitcoin. You've got blockchain, which is kind of leading also into the Bitcoin era. Obviously, when the internet set up, it was a one cable thing, and the computer was the size of a house. So you could say big data is part of the internet. You could say AI is part of the internet. They've been working on AI for 20 years. That's almost when the internet was founded.
But so the AI will have to transact on the information layer, which is the internet, and the Bitcoin is the monetary network.
Yeah, I think the internet will be void one day. And that's what I think replaces the internet. Because why if I walk outside of my house, why have I not still got Wi-Fi, and why am I on 3G? 3G is internet, but just anywhere you want it. So I do think the internet is going to be replaced, and you won't have a hardwired system in your house. So what does come after that is complete nomad internet.
Yeah, but it's still built on the internet protocol. It's even though you're talking about the hardware and the way that the data gets to you. I mean, I totally think there'll be a contact lens you put in, and everything. You'll see everyone's profile. You'll know exactly where everyone is. The whole AI world will just dominate us until we become insignificant. But if AI will transact on a layer of energy, which is transactional between all the AIs.
And it depends what you mean. Everything. It depends what you mean by internet as well. Because if the internet is just, in the way we're talking about, it's just synthesized human information that's being created and uploaded digitally, then that's going to be massively, massively outweighed on a pure like volume of data comparable by robots that are going to collect so much real world data and analog data. It's going to dwarf the internet really, really quickly. So then like there's this new kind of medium of information that will come from sensory data and feedback within robots, because it will be within everything: your microwave, your kettle, your toaster, your two bipedal robots you have in your house. They're going to be collecting so much visual, noise, tactile stimulus and all this shit, and that's going to get synthesized into a whole new kind of data set that's going to lead the world basically, and instruct better changes in pharmaceuticals, in technology, in physics, and all that sort of stuff. And the internet as we know it will be this really small fractional thing, because it's going to be this new AI interactive thing with the
But
world.
all that data, all that noise will be embedded onto the internet. They'll need to transact.
Yeah. No, I agree.
That data has to transfer around the world.
Yeah. There has to still be this kind of like layer in between, of electrons moving around to pass data. It's more just if we put the internet as being this like historical source of synthesized human intelligence, then let's say that's what the internet's called now. There's going to be this new layer of much larger data sets that are going to be more useful for us, from robots and sensory feedback loops that will come from all these different things and hardwares we're going to put into the world. And that will kind of be like, well, what's the internet and what's not? Like, what do we call that new thing? It's just going to be this huge data set, and it's not going to
Do you guys
be
watch,
synthesized in the same way.
Do you guys watch Black Mirror?
Yeah, it's fucking good, mate.
Stu, have
Why?
you? Oh mate, you love it.
I've seen it on.
It's basically like
Netflix.
it's basically like loads of really smart engineers have smoked a load of weed and made got like various different like plays on like virtual reality and life. And I was actually watching one of the ones the other day where this woman has a brain tumor and she gets a chip put in, and the chip basically fixes her brain tumor, but then she gets sold upgrades which she can't afford, and it just gets to the point where the technology wins, right? She just can't afford the next package. She starts having fits, and there's actually she starts saying advertisements. So she's walking around, she'll be like, "You can buy Colgate," and anyway, I think we're agreeing that the internet is kind of the internet in theory, or passing of data, is staying, and that's that. But where we've got new influxes is information, data carrying, AI, people got robots in your home, all that sort of stuff. Do you think there will ever be like digital merging with like our brains? So
Yes,
where
absolutely. Like I think what ends up happening is we become a nexus of intelligence, and we lose the individual agency we understand now, and we'll become like an orb of intelligence. And I think the internet is like an early infantile step in that direction, and social media consolidates that. And I think eventually we end up, because of AI, we'll have to increase bandwidth, which means we'll have to upload ourselves, which means eventually we'll end up just becoming this nexus orb of intelligence, kind of like an ant fucking, what do you call it? Like
Colony.
an ant colony is. Yeah, kind of similar to that, and we'll become Earth.
Basically, the Matrix. We become batteries and proof of work. So our energy, our human energy, will fund this fucking mass internet, or whatever you want to call it, blockchain.
Well, we live in
become at one
simulations
with
in our
the,
minds. Yeah, mate. Wow, fucking hell. We went from property tax to some deep Black Mirror shit here.
if you could walk into a shop and your mind is digitally downloaded onto like a hard drive and someone could buy it, what do you think your mind would be worth?
I don't know. It'd be easy to close sales though, wouldn't it? If you could see inside their mind and know what they actually want.
Where would the value be?
No, I'm
though?
not
'Cause let's
saying for
say
a customer. I'm saying that you
sell your
could walk
brain
into a shop and buy Stuart Wyeth.
I've got to be worth at least $250,000.
$250,000.
Yeah, but let's
At least $250,000.
I wouldn't trouble
That's
someone giving me my mind.
Worth a 3-bed house.
I'll
That's
pay
interesting,
them.
though, isn't it? But if you valued that like a trump card, like I would want to take, I don't know, Paul McCartney's mind, so I could go and experience what it was like being the Beatles, and I'd pay a pretty sum for that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And someone
it's
else
cool when
might
you
do that
think
with a
about it.
sports athlete. Yeah, interesting. But there you go. What a weird
Interesting.
podcast today. Fucking love
Yeah.
it. And
My favourite topic has always been Arthur Guinness, which you guys experienced in the very first episode or second episode, I think.
yeah,
No, it was a few episodes. We were delayed.
there was a few episodes in.
actually
We
do
kept
the
kicking it
test.
down the line.
Yeah, we'll get
Yeah,
round to
I've got one for you. I've got one for you. Why is it that if you're using public transport and you get you get on the bus, right, or you get on the train. If someone else is driving a car, why you don't get on the car or in the cab? Yeah.
I don't know why. Is it because you're sharing it with other people, so you don't own it? And you're in a cab, you sort of take ownership of being in it or independently. Where you get on a train or on a bus, you're on with other people.
I think it's a theory of multiples. So as soon as it gets a certain stature of size, and the people that you are going to be in it with that are non friends, it's then on. Yeah,
On a train, on a
Ooh.
plane, on a boat, but in a car.
Yeah, you don't get on a car, do you?
no, you don't.
You got to get in a train though. That does sound weird. Maybe because it's not yours. I don't know.
But I've got one for you. If you're going skiing and you know those things that go up the mountain, what do you in or on? Yeah, in or on.
In, I'd go in a gondola. Should we get in the gondola?
Oh, on though,
Yeah.
because it's a continuous cable.
Well, we're getting on the cable, yeah, in a gondola.
Yeah. Okay.
Jack, this is a lot. This is a lot for the brain, mate.
This is a lot.
I've got,
This is still fairly early.
My wife breaks frequently when I ask her questions.
What's after the internet, Kelly?
I will share my like cool theory of Tesla though, which is what I think is mind blowing. Is I was chatting to a guy that owns a Tesla Model S in the US, and he's got that unlimited free charging. He's bought the car, he paid for the lifetime charging, and that's that. You know, he gets that as soon as that car is. If that car is running, he can charge it for free anywhere for the rest of his life. And I said to him, are you ever going to sell it? And he said, no, I've got unlimited charging. And I said, well, what about if all the batteries need changing? And he said, I'll change all the batteries. I said, what about if the chassis needs changing? He said, I'll change the chassis. I said, you've technically bought software.
Yeah.
If it's all changeable,
Software.
it's software, which get your head around that, listeners. A car that is just software.
Yeah.
That's not entirely true, because when you buy an aircraft, when you buy one of these PA-28s or something that's 40 years old, everything's changeable apart from the chassis number. So you literally would just change every part of it and still keep it, and it would still keep the registration. But that's not effectively software.
But there would be elements that you wouldn't have to change.
Well, theoretically, you can change everything as long as you've got the registration and it's attached to that registration.
I mean, you could change anything on anything. Yeah, I could remove your house and build it exactly the same with everything new. But there's the principle of the Tesla is you buy a car and it typically depreciates down in value, and then you sell it and it goes to someone else and they drive it around. But you would know, and then it eventually gets scrapped. So it's hardware, whereas a Tesla is software.
I've got one for you then. I've got one for you. Have you ever taken apart a car?
Most of it, yeah.
You have done?
Yeah, I had a Volkswagen. I had a 1970s Volkswagen Beetle as my first car.
I had a 1961 Mini Cooper that my stepdad, mum's boyfriend at the time, said you can have a play on that, and I took the whole thing apart and never put it back together. It's way too complicated, but the whole engine out, yeah.
This is what I want to do. Yeah, I've been wanting to do this for a while. And there's a shout out as well, a guy called Matt Armstrong on YouTube, and he's great. And he basically takes apart like auction sports cars and puts them back together and shit. And then I was with a mate in my cousin's boyfriend in the south, and he takes apart like old classic coupes and crazy cars. They're like £1 million cars for clients, and he like remolds and does all the paneling and everything, puts them back together. And I was asking him, I was like, I really want to take a car apart and put it back together. I've just got this urge to want to see if I can do it, and it's still run. And he said I need to get a Vauxhall Golf Mark IV GTI 2004 plate, ideally 1.8 turbo. Yeah, because apparently they're in abundant supply. All the materials are pretty ubiquitous with other materials you can get and parts on the market. Most scrap yards will have the different bits and bobs you might need for the engine, the door panels and shit like that. And I just thought that'd be an interesting brain exercise to take apart a car with no knowledge on just as a hobby and try and put it back together. Manual. Yeah.
Have a go.
So why did you take?
Have you got the space for it, mate? Have you got the space for it? I was 16 and I was trying to stay off the streets, and it's just something to do. It was a lovely motor as well, and I just never put it back together, and we sold it for parts, and pretty much.
Did you try and put it back together?
I tried. Yeah, I did, but I was 16. I was interested. I was, the ADHD. Right. I was into it, and then on to the next thing.
I'd recommend you start with like a Lambretta So I grew up playing around with motorbikes, quad bikes, all those sorts of things, like playing around with them. My car, I didn't really touch too much because it's a lot larger. There's a lot more that can go wrong with it. You've got to deal with compression, whereas with a motorbike, you can deal with carburetors. And I would recommend start with like a Lambretta moped or a motorbike.
A moped.
It's easier to do. You can get to the engine straight away. You can mess around with it. You can ride it up the road and back and test things.
That's an interesting point. You know, I didn't think about that. Like, it's just a smaller vehicle, isn't it? So
you try, you got to get an engine crane to take the engines up out. The beauty with the VW Beetle is you can kind of see everything. It's like a V-shape engine, so you can kind of get in the boot and play around with it.
So have you taken apart your bike before?
Yeah, I've played around with bikes loads.
I want to do it. I just feel like it'd be a great brain exercise.
From the age of like 5, I was tinkering with bikes.
I just think it'd be good. It must be good for the mind, you know, to pull apart like a complex thing and then like understand its components and then go like, all right, fuck it, and try to put it back together and it'll work or it won't work. I suppose there's YouTube as well now, which make life.
Yeah, you can do that with anything. You can do that with your household Hoover. I take apart our Dyson Hoover and clean it all out. And
Love to do an E-type Jag. If I've got the space.
Is it? E-type
Yeah, I'd love to
Jag,
do an E-type Jag.
Well, in your new double garage, you could.
Series 1. That's exactly it. You know, never got a bit of space. You know, tinker around in the garage. Stay out of trouble still.
Well, mate, this has been this podcast has really gone to some places. It's been quite an eclectic mix.
Dorian's going to hand in his notice.
Yeah. Love it. Brilliant. Amazing. Well, I know you got a call now, Jackie boy. So let's wrap up. But thanks everyone for listening. Hopefully you found that, whatever that was, that episode, hopefully you found that useful. Be interested to hear feedback as well, actually, on this. If anyone has experiences or is going to be getting hit by these new tax changes in the south, it'd just be interesting to know, because I know people I spoke to when I was down south this weekend, they all have properties over 500 grand and they're all like, fuck, what's going to happen now? So yes, keep an eye on this space.
Stuart said any of our listeners that have got a house over 500 grand, he'll lend you the money.
He did. He said, I'll give you some Bitcoin.
Yeah.
I'll give you some paper. I'll give you some Stuart Wyeth tokens that we can pretend they've got some value. Call them the British pound.
All right, big love. Thank you, everyone who's watched. And bear in mind, we are going to be doing a live event. So just keep an eye on this space. Subscribe. Really helps us if you subscribe and share the episode with people who you think may find it useful. Subsquala. Peace out and see you next week. Bye-bye.
Ground up sound.